Have you ever stopped to wonder what something really costs to make? I'm not just talking about the obvious stuff, like the raw materials. I mean everything, every single step, every little action that goes into it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how businesses figure this out and find the true price of production. You know, it's a classic business mystery, right? Two products hit the market. They look pretty much the same, they feel similar, but one just takes off and becomes a bestseller, while the other one, well, it just quietly fades away. And the answer, more often than you'd think, has nothing to do with fancy marketing or just plain luck. It's about knowing what's actually happening behind the scenes, bridging the gap between the numbers on a spreadsheet and the reality of a noisy, busy factory floor. I mean, think about it. If you don't know the true cost of making something, how on earth can you price it right? How can you know if you're even making money? Now, for a long, long time, most companies used a pretty simple method to figure out their costs. But as we're about to see, that simplicity, well, it comes at a pretty high price because it can be incredibly misleading. It can straight up lie to you. Here's the best way to think about it. Imagine you go out to dinner with a friend. You just get a small salad, but your friend goes all out. Appetizer, steak, dessert, the whole shebang. When the bill comes, you just split it 50-50. That's traditional costing. It takes all the general expenses, what we call overhead, like rent, electricity, admin stuff, and just smears it evenly across all products. So your simple product ends up looking way more expensive than it is, and the complex, resource-hungry one looks like a bargain. You just can't make smart decisions with a picture that distorted. So what's the fix? Well, we have to change how we look at the problem. Instead of focusing on the final products, we need to zoom in on the activities that are actually eating up resources and driving up costs. And this is the brilliant idea behind a method called activity-based costing, or ABC. This whole approach starts with a really fundamental shift in thinking. ABC is built on one simple truth. Products don't consume costs. Activities do. Think about it. Setting up a machine for a production run? That's an activity. Placing an order for more materials? That's an activity. Inspecting a batch for quality? You guessed it, another activity. Each one has a real cost, and ABC is the tool that lets us trace those costs directly to the products that actually use them. Okay, so how does this actually work in the real world? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine that drives this whole thing. It's actually a really clear, logical process once you see it laid out. It all boils down to 5 essential steps. First, you figure out every key activity in your process. Then, for each one, you find what's called its cost driver. That's the thing that makes the cost go up or down, like the number of machine setups, for example. From there, you add up the total cost for each activity. You figure out a rate per driver, and finally, you assign those costs to your products based on how much of each activity they actually used. Now, a really crucial part of this whole thing is learning to separate the good activities from the wasteful ones. You see, value-added activities are the things the customer is actually paying you for. You know, the design work, the actual assembly of the product. But then you have the non-value-added activities. This is just pure cost. Things like storing inventory or moving parts from one side of the factory to the other. That doesn't make the product any better, but it sure does make it more expensive. ABC shines a giant spotlight on all that waste. And this process lets you get incredibly detailed. A business might map out all its activities and then group them into 4 key levels. You've got unit-level costs that happen for every single item you make, then batch-level costs for each group you produce, then product-level costs tied to a specific product line, and finally, facility-level costs, which are the big general overheads. This level of detail, this granularity, is exactly what makes ABC so powerful. All right, theory is great, but let's make this feel real. We're going to walk through a super simple example to see exactly how this completely changes the game for a company. Okay, so here's our company. They make 2 things, simple bottled water and a more complex orange juice. The key activities are ordering materials, setting up the production line, running the machines, and doing quality checks. Now, if they used old school costing, these 2 drinks might look pretty similar in terms of cost. But are they really? Let's fire up the ABC method and find out. So step 1 is to calculate the cost per rate for each activity. We can see how it's done right here. For instance, the total cost for placing all material orders was 3,000 baht. They placed 50 orders in total. So you just divide 3,000 by 50 and you get a specific cost of 60 baht every single time an order is placed. Simple, right? We just repeat that exact same math for every other activity. Now for the fun part. We apply those rates to our first product, the water. As the table shows, making the water required 20 material orders, so we multiply that by our 60 baht rate. It also needed 2 production setups, 300 machine hours, and 18 inspections. We multiply each of those by their own unique activity rate, add it all up, and we get a total overhead cost of 23,700 baht for the whole batch. And then we just divide that total cost by the 10,000 bottles they produced. Bam! We get the true overhead cost for one single bottle of water, 2.37 baht. A nice, clean, precise number. But what about the orange juice? Remember, it's a more complex product, and as the data here shows, it used up a lot more resources. It needed more orders, more setups, more machine time, and more quality checks. So we run the exact same calculations, multiplying its specific usage by the activity rates we already figured out. And the result is, wow. Just look at that. The true overhead cost for a single bottle of orange juice is 393 baht. That's over 65% more than the water. A traditional costing system would have completely buried this fact. It probably would have made the water look more expensive and the juice seem way more profitable than it actually is. This is a game changer. So, okay, we've gone through all this work to get more accurate numbers, but what does that actually mean for the business? Why does this all matter so much? Honestly, it means everything. When you have this kind of clarity, you can finally price your products correctly to make sure you're actually making money. You can make smart, strategic decisions, like maybe putting more marketing behind the simple, high-margin water, or figuring out how to cut the costs of making the juice. You can see exactly which activities are black holes for your budget and find ways to make them more efficient. This isn't just some boring accounting exercise, it's a roadmap to building a smarter, leaner, and way more profitable business. You know, this way of thinking doesn't just apply to big factories. It applies pretty much everywhere. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What are the hidden activities that are secretly consuming time, energy, and resources in your own world? And what's their real cost?